Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Attention. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again with another fun episode of Unchurched. Attention. What has your attention? What do you give your attention to? Good news and bad news. There are more distractions out there than ever before. And I believe that distraction is the enemy of discipleship. And it's something I struggle with. It's something you struggle with. There's so many distractions these days. I was chatting with someone I recently met in a waiting room, and she was talking about her kids. And, her kids are similar to my age, so she's more my age, born in the late 70s. And she's like, these kids, or her kids recently, were complaining that there's nothing on TV. And, we were reminiscing about the old days, growing up, where we had an old Zenith tube TV, this massive behemoth of a TV that had, I don't know, either 12, 14 channels total, and that was it. And then, I remember the big day where we had a TV that actually had a little box, like your first cable box, where you had, maybe 36 channels. And then you got your first TV guide, and you had all these different choices. And, there are so many more things and distractions. And now, of course, we have these pretty amazing computers that are in our hands or in our pockets. And there are so many distractions out there. It's not even funny. And when you think about it in the terms of that, distraction, doing other things like that, is the enemy. It's the opposite, essentially, of discipleship, going out there and making an impact, serving people, loving people, having good relationships. It's pretty scary. And I look at now my time in a given day and how often I go to my phone. I pick up my phone. I want to check, and I told you before, I don't really read the news, or I don't have a news channel. I literally don't. I haven't been to a Fox or CNN in who knows how many years, and nor do I watch it unless it's just on at someone's house or in a waiting room or something like that. But I do go to Facebook a lot, and that's where I kind of get a lot of my news. Not to say one's better or worse; they're probably all pretty equally worse. But that is where I find myself going back to seeing things, whether it be local things happening in some of the Facebook groups I'm a part of here in Winter Haven, some of the fishing groups and outdoor groups, etc. But that is where I get my news. And I find myself going back there and going down rabbit holes and getting distracted. And I've recently had to put a cap on myself of 45 minutes a day, because I started looking at it. Sometimes we're 2 hours in a given day, never at one time. It'll be like 5-10 minutes at a time, and I put it down, and then I'm distracted again. And so I've had to put a limit on myself, because I still like going there. I still have great friendships there. I still get to see some of my cousins in Texas and other places through Facebook. So I think there are benefits to it. But every time I'm on there, I'm not discipling people in general, right? I'm usually just distracted. And we've got this at our house. It's a massive oak tree right in the middle, like when you come down our driveway, right in front of our house. Big oak tree, and it has this really big circle around it. So it's a circular driveway that essentially the circle goes around this big oak tree. And in the middle is this really big flower bed. And it's got a little hedge. So you kind of have to like jump over the hedge to get in there. So it's kind of a pain. You're not like ever walking through that, but it's a centerpiece of our house. Like if anyone who's been to our house in our driveway, like it's the first thing you see is this oak tree and this really big, circular flower bed. And it's got some cool little plants in it, et cetera. And for the first year or so, we were pretty good about getting in there, not every week, but every 3 weeks, let's just say, and just pulling some of the weeds that had sprouted up. And, that gets old sometimes, or, life gets in the way. You have a season where you're just busy. And so I remember when I did it, it's been, I don't know, a year or two now, when the first time we did it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go, spend some money on mulch. I'm going to kind of go all in on a full weekend and really get this flower bed looking good. And it's it was, I I don't remember how many bags of mulch, but it was a ton. Like it was a massive delivery, and like more than I could get in the back of a truck. Big. So we got the weeds out and mulched the heck out of it. It looked amazing, pristine. It was the best it had ever looked since we lived there. And because I'd spent so much time on it, and because you kind of figure, oh, the mulch is there, it'll take forever those weeds to grow, we kind of put it on the back burner, meaning it wasn't part of our routine. It was not part of our habitual habit or something we had on the calendar that, oh, we need to go in there and weed. And so we neglected it. We literally ignored it and just assumed it would be looking pretty forever. And lo and behold, like a full year goes by and the mulch is still there in some areas. The massive rainfalls, and we went through a hurricane that year. It moved a lot of stuff around. But what was very noticeable were all the weeds. And I'm talking like it was a hot mess. And it's crazy how fast it happens, right? And we're smart enough to know it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like one day there was no weeds, the next day there was, thousands. It was a very progressive thing. And I think that's kind of how they talk about boiling frogs, right? When you do it at a really slow rate, all of a sudden it's at burning level and the frog is dead. But if you threw them in a hot boiling water, they're going to jump out real quick. And so it was once again, it was a distraction. We didn't give any attention to it, and all of a sudden it was bad. So guess what? You're gonna love the story. So like, oh man, mad at ourselves. We did the whole thing over again. So spent a whole weekend pulling weeds. Like I'm talking literally, 10 plus hours, if not way more, just pulling the weeds, and then another full day of doing the mulch again. All right, we're not going to let that happen. And we didn't. For a little while, we were better at it. We're still going in there and picking every little small piece of weeds, any sign of greenery popping up in between that mulch. We go in there and pull it. And we were on it. Like we were giving it our full attention. And lo and behold, life got in the way again. And that thing became an absolute weed garden, almost to the point the mulch was barely even visible. There were just so many weeds. I mean, some of these weeds, 12, 14 inches high. I mean, I'm talking some nasty stuff going on. There's stuff. It's like, how is it possible? I can't grow grass in some of the areas I want to grow grass in my yard. And this stuff is popping up left and right and growing like a weed, as they say. I mean, literally growing, 12 inches, mind boggling. And so the moral of the story is what gets your attention is what will grow. Right. Or in this case, it's weeds will grow there. But normally, in general, what you actually put water on and give your attention grows, and everything else just grows weeds, right? And so the things that you don't put attention to, the good stuff, will eventually grow weeds like that. And a good analogy for at least me growing up, and maybe you were the same, is we went to church on Sundays, but in between those days, me personally, I didn't really have a really important walk with God. Meaning it wasn't something that I talked about every day. It was kind of like that garden there, right? That nice little area here at our house. I went to Sunday. I went all in. I actually gave it my full attention. I prayed, took communion. We went to Episcopal church where we did communion. And I felt like, man, I am just renewed, rejuvenated. And then for the rest of the week, I would ignore it. Very similar to the wheat garden. And what would happen, obviously, if you miss a week, all of a sudden 2 weeks go by without going to church and you have no walk with God, you have very little prayer time. And all of a sudden these weeds just start spouting up. And all of a sudden you have a nasty weed bed that you've neglected for a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever it is. Instead of getting in there and weeding it every day or every week and giving attention to it, it can get out of hand really, really quick. And it's the same with how we use internet, kind of getting back to how I started the conversation. I'm watching mostly my daughter because our younger kids, Savannah's 11 and Jackson's 8. We've been very blessed. None of them have phones, and we're probably the oddball out. Even our 14-year-old daughter does not have a phone yet. And, but she's got internet access, obviously. These days, the tough part for being a parent and this whole internet stuff is all their classes are online. I mean, their grades are online. Most of their curriculum, is online. A lot of this stuff that they have to do, and the PSAT, the learning for the SAT, that's 100% online. I know you can still, buy some old school books, and we've done some of that, but even the testing now is, throughout the school is online. And that is a slippery slope as well. And we're watching this with our daughter, just how addicting the everything on the computer. She's not on social media, thank goodness. At least if you guys know something I don't, let me know. But we've been pretty uh, pretty good about checking all that. And she doesn't have social media accounts, but she does have Minecraft and Discord and some of these other ones that are, I guess, technically forms of social media. But it is crazy addicting. And she's told us about some of her friends that, their parents let them have their phones and their devices in their room, which I personally am not going to judge anyone, but I think that's a horrible mistake. I don't do that ourselves. Like, we don't have a TV in our room. We don't have our computers in our room. When we go to bed, we go to bed. We don't have devices. I'll have my phone there just for an alarm, but it does not come on. And I think it's a horrible mistake to especially let young kids who are crazy influenceable and can be crazy addicted to this stuff have phones. And what they're doing is they're staying up till 2 a.m. On TikTok is kind of the big thing for, these 14, 15-year-old kids. And I don't see anything great happening from that. Once again, what you give attention to is going to grow, and all of a sudden that addiction grows. And I listened to a podcast recently about Facebook and just about the growth of Meta. And in those early days, and they're still doing it today, but in those early days, once Meta, or I guess it was Facebook still at the time, became a publicly traded company, during that time, they went and hired the absolute best psychiatrist and the best neurologist in the entire world that they could get. So think about this social media company, and this is not just Facebook. I'm not saying they're the only one doing it. They all did this. They went and go hire like big money to go get the best psychiatrist and neurologist in the world to teach them how to get people addicted to their thing, their platform. They want us distracted. They just remember, distraction is the enemy of discipleship. They literally paid the best mind people in the world that know human emotions, that know what humans get addicted to teach them how to use this social media platform to get and keep people addicted as long as possible. That's how they make money. This might shock you, and I'm being very sarcastic and facetious, but they do not have our best interest in mind. Meaning, Facebook does not sit there and say, man, how can we make these people's lives better and help them to go do great discipleship and have, better relationships and better one-on-one time. Their entire goal is to keep you on there as long as humanly possible so that they can serve you enough ads and serve enough things in your feed to keep you on there even longer to keep making money. It is a vicious cycle. And once again, I think when you have that much of your attention to something like that, and is that addicting? It is addicting. Addicting for me. As I said, I can't stop going back in there. I now have to put a daily limit on myself where it literally locks me out of Facebook once I've been in there over 45 minutes in any 24-hour period. It's sad that we have to do that, right? It's absolutely crazy. But I don't want to be the person who's on there for 2, 3, 4 hours, and it's a slippery slope. And all of a sudden now I'm giving all my attention to random, Facebook groups and negative stuff instead of my family and my work and my relationship with God, my walk with God. And another wild thing that they talked about in this this Meta interview was in the early days, Zuckerberg had everything on desktop. If you recall the old school Facebook, on just imagine you're on a computer screen. That's how it all started. It wasn't an app in the beginning. Actually, it wasn't even an app when they went public, if you can believe it. And on the far right-hand side were all the ads. So you had your feed, which was essentially you seeing all your friends and your friends' stuff. It was 100% of it, right? That was before companies had these pages and before groups. It was literally you only saw things that you followed. And on the right-hand side were all the ads. And when he went all mobile, it lost like half its value. Facebook lost half of its stock value. And Zuckerberg in this in this interview, in this quote, had said, yeah, like it was really, really painful. I mean, to lose half of your net worth essentially. But he's like, I knew I was doing the right thing. And the number one concern for Wall Street and investors was that he was going to have a hard time getting ads on mobile because at the time, everyone expected to log into Facebook and only see what you wanted to see, like only see the things that you had subscribed to or your friends, right? You went to go there to see your, cousins in Texas or your college friends or high school friends that you hadn't seen in quite some time or your grandkids or whatever it might be. And he says, no, over time, we're just going to slowly, this is the boiling frog analogy. We're going to slowly insert ads in the feed. And I promise you, this came from Meta. We're doing enough business we run a lot of ads on Meta ourselves. And, we have our own, Meta manager that we talk to. And now today, it's 70, not 7%, 70 to 80% of what you see in your feed are things you do not follow. So it went from going to a safe place where you're getting to interact with your friends. You're not seeing news articles and fake news and all the chaotic stuff in there that we have to see. And, distractions for men, distractions for women, things that don't enhance our marriages and our lives that we're not asking to see, but it's coming in there because they know what distracts us. 80% of your feed right now are things you do not follow. And it'll probably just keep getting worse. That means what we signed up for, we don't even realize it's happening. I think if you look at your feed, you're like, man, yeah, I don't even follow that. I don't follow that. I don't follow that. How I'm not even subscribed to this news site. How is it making in my feed? They are literally serving up things that you don't follow to get you to click on it based on your interest. And they also told us, because we've been asking our manager there at Facebook, like, why are just our really good how-to stuff? Like we used to be able to do like a how-to, like a knot, like how to tie a certain knot or how to rig up something, like they're not doing as good. But if we put like a controversial meme or, something that goes, like we did one knot on tying up a boat, like onto a cleat. And there's a couple of different ways to do it. And it caused a lot of controversy. Like there were some people saying that's the dumbest way ever. Here's how you do it. And that did really, really well. But if we just do a good old school education, like helping someone, it doesn't do as well. And here's what they told us. This is from Meta. And I'm not picking on Meta once again. This is all of them. But they said negative or triggering or confrontational things tend to get moved up to the top. And they didn't say it just like that, but they said, anything that is kind of going against the grain or that really gets people talking, essentially, they just want things that are engaging. But we all know what it means. It means they want stuff that's triggering and confrontational because we're watching it happening with our own stuff. If you look at all of our posts, the ones that get moved up to the top, because it's not an amount just based on shares. It's stuff that's just getting moved up to the top, and Facebook is giving it more eyeballs, or Meta is giving it more eyeballs, are the things that are negative and triggering, confrontational. That's what's getting moved up to the top. So here's what I think we should be doing. If you're wondering where I'm going with this, what we give attention to is what is going to grow. Everything else grows weeds. And, I'm even looking when I was at my lowest lows, what got my attention was anxiety, right? I was anxious about all these things that hadn't happened. And I gave it so much attention. I was essentially feeding it. And guess what? That just kept growing. It was like this vicious cycle. And I think we should be focused on real relationships. We should be focused on scripture, reading the Bible, prayer, or walk with God. One thing I really like about our C12 group is we have to rate ourselves every month on how we've done with relationships, with, our biblical community, with our marriage, with friends and family, and rest and retreat, and a few others. And one of the big ones is walk with God. And I've noticed that my life is better. I've got less stress. For some reason, the business seems to just be moving in a more seamless way. I've got better conversations with my wife and my kids when my walk with God is highest. So it's really neat. You can track yourself from the past of how you're rating yourself and the times. And I think this is pretty similar with the other guys in my C12 group. When our walk with God is really low, it seems like everything else is kind of just on shaky ground. And walk with God, can mean a lot of things. I'll be honest, I don't attend church as regularly as I used to, yet my walk with God is higher than it's ever been before, because in the past, kind of like that garden, this, weed garden, I would give it a lot of attention for a short amount of time, then I would neglect it for, a week, 2 weeks, a month, or whatever it might be. Meaning, yeah, you go to church and then you kind of forget about all that stuff. You don't talk with God. Now because I wake up every single morning, 7 days a week. And the first thing I do is I talk with God. I write to God. I write all the things I'm thankful for. I read a little scripture. And regardless if I go to church or not, I'm not abdicating for or against it. I think you should go. And I love it. I still go. I do miss some. But still, I feel like that walk with God is more powerful than ever. And if I do miss it, guess what I do? I like to go out on walks and listen to podcasts, church podcasts. I like to go out there and pray. And I feel like when I give that my attention, when I give God and Jesus my attention, everything else gets better. And when I am giving my attention to Facebook groups and controversial things that get me fired up, like they probably do you, because once again, they're serving up things that you're going to get fired up about, regardless if it's Facebook or TikTok or even just, Fox News or CNN or whatever you're watching. They know that gets you riled up. And when you give that your attention, you're distracted. You cannot be a good disciple. You cannot be a good follower of Christ if we're constantly distracted in all the things that are out there. So that's my challenge to myself, to you, is how can we give some more time to working on relationships and giving our attention to real relationships with our family, our friends, our close ones, our loved ones, or even coworkers, whatever it is for you. Give more time and attention to scripture, give more time and attention to prayer, and give more time and attention to our walk with God. And here is the best news. None of this stuff costs any money. This is all free. I'm not asking you you got to go invest $100,000 to have a relationship or to be able to walk with God. It's all free. It's literally stuff you can do without any money. It's just time. And second best news, it's in your control. You literally have the choice. You can choose, and I can choose, just like after this podcast, I can choose to maybe say a little prayer with God and walk outside, spend some time out my dock, or I can sit there to choose to open up Facebook or Instagram or the news or whatever it is. It's always a choice we have to make. So beauty of it is it's free. It's in your control, and you get to choose at the end of the day. So my challenge to you once again is put your attention on the things that matter. Don't get caught up in all of the stuff. Once again, they've paid the best psychiatrists and neurologists. And it didn't shock me, right, that they did that. But when they admitted to we literally paid the best neurologists in the entire world to teach us how to get people addicted. They don't have our best interests in mind. And I'm not talking about just Facebook and Instagram. I'm talking about all of these distractions out there that are constantly hitting us on our phone and our TVs, et cetera. So hope this was helpful. This one just hit me right across the head. There's many times before I record these, or even 2 hours before I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And I just pray to God to give me the message. And this hit me all of a sudden, and it just started kind of flowing out. It's such a big struggle for me. It's just my attention. I'm finding I'm having to once again limit myself, and maybe that's something you should do. It's right there on your phone. You can limit yourself on any certain app, etc. And thank goodness the phone enables us to do that. And my next one is going to be cutting it down by 15 minutes, until I get down to almost nothing. Right, I'm not on there much at all. So love you guys. Hope this is helpful, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.